This is Cow, the podcast.
Yeah, hi there and welcome to Cow, the podcast, episode 18, Wow, Spinoza. This week, again short, but hopefully sweet, I take another run at some of the ideas in contemporary cognitive science, making a personal connection with what it feels like to think, what it feels like to take on the ideas of people like Enlightenment philosopher Spinoza, for example, and to understand them from our 21st century frame, feeling that physical, empathic connection with them, even after they've been around for so many centuries. We are, after all, embodied selves. Perhaps it's time to make that part of our everyday rationale. Philosophy? Meh. What's that feel like? Well, to find out you have to tune in, and here's why. One of the things I do when I'm philosophizing, or when I'm thinking about the kind of stuff that might get called philosophy, is I take it personally. That realization came to me today. What I mean is that I've become conscious that there is a physical effect to all of this thinking. It's not just something that happens in your head, not just something goes on in your mind and has no physical effect on the body. And it's not just the kind of thing, the way you're hunched over after spending hours of screen time, although that's part of it. I feel what's going on in my mind, a shift sometimes, or maybe cognitive dissonance, as we all do. And I'm thinking this experience is how George Lakoff's ideas about linguistic framing, how the mind is embodied, how these ideas get expressed in the wild. George Lakoff is an American cognitive linguist and philosopher, best known for his thesis that lives of individuals are significantly influenced by the central metaphors they use to explain stuff, how these things are physically formed in the brain. He explains how our minds are intrinsically linked with our bodies. It's as though when I read and when I think in what is for me a deep and profound manner about stuff, there will be a point or a period where I can be conscious of, or at least come to know, that everything's just going over my head. It just won't soak in. But if I persist with it, then there will be that shift when the concepts become internalized. In a previous article, When the Map Won't Fit, I wrote of having come across a philosophical position that completely rocked my foundations. I wrote of having felt that I'd been cast adrift, philosophically paralyzed as I got to grips with it. I mean, to be honest, this is precisely the sort of thing that I set out to do and to feel. So I can't complain, but it doesn't mean I wasn't startled by it. I'm saying now that this is cognitive dissonance, this feeling you get when you find two or more beliefs, ones that you hold, are in conflict. I mean, it was set out by Leon Fistinger's way back in the 1950s, but this is what it feels like. And as I said earlier, I'm equating it here, using George Lakoff's definitions, to being part of a process of neurologically reframing your own concepts. And why not? The process of research, it's a quest to empathize with the words and concepts of others to essentially reach a consensus. We know that's how communication works. I say a word, my brain fires up. You hear it, the same pattern happens. Just like when your child wins first prize, you feel it too. That pride. Communication is pure empathy. In the first place, however, when something new is going over your head, maybe you and the author share no common reference. This is nothing to do with intelligence, relative intelligence, but it's everything to do with shouting till you're blue in the face about something you understand and someone else still has no idea what you're talking about, no matter how simple it may appear to you. The linguistic frames, the connected roles and relationships with which the author feels familiar, they don't necessarily have a place in your neural network. They can't be directly replicated in your own mind. They don't spark the same emotional and conceptual circuits in your head. To extend the thinking here, to bring in the endocrine system, if the right cocktail of hormones have been triggered, your brain feels more disposed to learn this something new. We have dopamine, makes us focus, providing motivation and ensuring fond memories of a situation. We have oxytocin, increasing our generosity and levels of trust, increasing our ability to relax and to bond. And we have the endorphins, again, relaxing and promoting creativity. This is how it is. If I tell you a story full of suspense, jeopardy, a cliffhanger, you'll focus, you'll be motivated, you'll remember this fondly. And if I choose to make you laugh, you'll relax, you'll be responsive and more creative. And if my words get you to feel what I am feeling, to feel empathy with me, we'll be bonding, you'll trust me, be more generous. We have the conditions then, so that your brain can seek to reset. It can take time and energy to modify those existing frames and linguistic systems, the neurological networks, or perhaps even create others anew. Now, this won't happen instantly, and it'll happen without you knowing it, but you will be familiar with that snap of consciousness that occurs when everything falls into place. When you return to the subject, or even when, should I say, the subject returns to you. It's the penny dropping. I love these metaphors. The dissonance is that feeling created as the brain searches around for a familiar network to hang the new concepts on. I mean, that was me bumping and banging around in the cellar, opening drawers and cupboards at random. Like, where did I put that thing? Where could it be? Why won't this fit? But that snap of consciousness of recognition is what we feel when the neurological circuits now have the framework to fire simultaneously. The penny has dropped. You, the reader, understand the author. You are in sync. That's everything falling into place. The point here is that I'd sort of got myself into a state of shock, out of my belief in a rational self, able to observe and to control non-self. I'd come to realize just how trapped we were in our animal brains. I'd come to realize the extent of our determination, our lack of free will, for want of a better phrase. And it had, as I say, affected me deeply, physically and psychologically. And I don't know, not really what brought me to Spinoza. All I'd heard of him was an intriguing reference made by Jordan Peterson when he likened Sam Harris's atheist position to being just another explanation of the God of Spinoza. Well, what I do know is that after some time, I got it. Got that snap of recognition. This might sound woolly, but it's so hard to pin down at this stage what it was that brought this on. But so many of the themes and ideas maybe attributed to Spinoza were familiar. They brought comfort. They were a relief to hear. And out of that, if I can use the phrase satori, it was as if I'd been given a kick. Set on the move again. I was able to take that first step, put one foot in front of the other. I was back on the path. So who was he? Spinoza was a Portuguese Jew, one of the earliest thinkers of the Enlightenment. He was born in 1632 and lived a relatively simple life, refusing, highly paid jobs to earn his keep as a lens grinder until the dust and conditions of that job helped kill him in 1677. Having said he led a simple life, it ought to be noted that he was excommunicated twice, once as a Jew and once as a Christian, for atheist beliefs. And this, whilst most of his work was dedicated to a discussion on the nature of God. Many times he's quoted as being the most loved prince of philosophers. Hegel, for example, was one of them, and Einstein another of his fans. His timeline starts a little after the tulip bulb crash in Holland, and just after Descartes, who was hugely influential on him. And it runs concurrently with that of Vermeer, the painter, who'd lived within 4 miles of him. Both shared an interest in optics. Key to Spinoza is that he rejected Descartes' duality of mind and matter and his overarching God. Spinoza said, no, it's all the same. Why should we humans be a dominion within a dominion, with souls, autonomous and separate from substance? We're part of the whole. And it's all intelligible. It therefore all must be related one to another. God is substance. He said that which is can be called God or nature. In this, he redefined God akin to the uncarved block of Taoism, and so did Christianity or Judaism, proved himself an atheist. But at the same time, he defined man as an animal with appetites or passions, constantly wanting to be on the move or elsewhere. And he believed that to be human is to suffer with a constant sense of inadequacy of what you've got, which is where I see this cognitive dissonance link. He believed that these passions were the result of the conatus, or a life force that drives us as part of the whole, in the need for enlightenment, the need to have more, to thrive, or to become closer to an understanding of the universe, to God or of nature. And he believed we're on this intellectual journey, driven to experience knowledge, but not just as an intellectual exercise, but also through the passions or emotions. Spinoza, probably more than any other, had been responsible for removing the grounds for believing in a transcendent, judgmental God. But he didn't stop there. He didn't stop short to leave us struggling with our emotions. He was acutely aware of the consequences of such a conclusion. In his ethics, he desperately tried to rationalize the passions. He was driven to ground morality out of human nature itself. From this, the 19th century romantics saw him as a pantheist, replacing God with a reverence for our part in the whole. I don't have a deep understanding of Spinoza, hands up. My understanding is at first glance. But what I do take from him is the fondness that both Einstein and Hegel expressed. His is a very human philosophy born of intuition, and which has proved time and time again to be so accurate and so far-reaching. Take cognitive science today, for example. Take the works of Nietzsche. And I don't know how, or even if he makes a case for where our ability to become free observers actually emerges from. But his position is primarily that humans are animal-minded robots. And at the same time, he was fundamentally of the opinion that we as humans can and do observe our determined selves. He believed that through metaphysical thought, through reason over empirical evidence, we may come to know better. That's better, my quotes. Now here is a man truly seeking to understand how humans work and how we fit in. Not only grounding our ethics, but also even grounding philosophy itself. It was some sort of osmosis allowed me to gain this instinctive understanding of Spinoza's position and an emotional bond to his hopes and ideals. And it was this process, this cognitive exercise of organization and remapping, this physical exercise to redefine established frames, to set new paths between them, that brought perhaps certainty, familiarity and relief to me. Yes, what I know of Spinoza remains sketchy, and it remains to be seen if the frame I've stuck him in will stand up to scrutiny. But it worked for me. We don't just need to understand the weird ideas about stuff. It's what that understanding does for you that counts. In Spinoza, we feel his passion, we feel his humanity, and we feel connected. Hence the title, Wow, Spinoza. So I'm going to leave it there. I've been Ant Biggs. This has been Cow the Podcast. Please pop by to cowthepodcast.online, comment, share, do what you like, really. But in the meantime, I hope you've enjoyed this, and thanks for listening.